Alright, in this video I'm going to go over factor by grouping. Before I show you an example, we're going to start by going through the steps. So step number 1 is going to be group the first two terms and the last two. Step 2 is going to be to factor out the GCF. So factor out the GCF of each group. Step 3 is going to be the GCF has to be the same for each of them, so you're going to pull that out. So factor out the common term groups, and I'll explain what this is, should match. And then step 4 is to check. So what this would look like, if I give you an example, is let's say I have x cubed plus 7x squared plus 2x plus 14. So step 1 is to group the first two and group the last two. Step 2 is to factor out the GCF of each group. So if you look x to the third and 7x squared, this one has an x squared in common. So I'm going to be left with x cubed divided by x squared is x. 7x squared divided by x squared is 7. Now for this one here, the common factor, 2x and 14, both of them have a 2 in common. And I'm left with x plus 7. So step 2 is to factor out the GCF of each group, which is what I did. So step 3 is to factor out the common term. The group should match. So if you see, I'm talking about the groups here, this group and this group are identical. They each have an x plus 7. So this here has an x plus 7 and this here has an x plus 7. So if I take out the x plus 7, if I divide that out, I would get x squared plus 2 left. And now if I FOILed this, I would get the exact thing I started with up here. So let me show you another example of that. So let's see example 2. So 2x squared y plus 6xy minus x minus 3. And step 1 was to group the first two and group the last two. Step 2 was to take out what they have in common. So 6 and 2 both have a 2 in it, an x and a y. So what's left is x. So the 2, an x and a y, so yeah, we're left with an x. Here, a 2 goes into it and you're left with a 3, an x and a y. So you're just left with x plus 3. For this one here, we have a negative x and a negative 3. I can take out a negative 1, and I'm left with x plus 3. So my groups match. This group and this group match, so I'm going to take that out, factor that out. And when I do that, I'm left with 2xy minus 1. So that is factor by grouping. And then if there's ever, let's say that this was x plus 3, if there's ever nothing that you can take out, remember you can always take out a 1. So here I ended up taking out a negative 1 because they were both negative. If these were both positive, I still would have taken out a positive 1, and my answer here would be positive 1 here. So that is factor by grouping.